The king may be dead, the cocaine trade is not.
One of the largest and most dangerous drug cartels in the world.
Used extreme violence.
More powerful today than ever before.
New technologies.
Completely invisible submarines.
This is one of the main problems that we have.
Incredibly difficult to detect, fascinating to actually go inside. It felt like a floating coffin.
Criminal groups wielding high-powered weaponry.
They're not afraid to use ultra-violence. Two of the most dangerous criminal organisations on the face of the earth.
With that ruthlessness comes violence, and with that violence comes murder.
This is not a movie.
In
the 80s and 90s, Pablo Escobar was the original king of cocaine.
chaotic scenes at the funeral service for Pablo Escobar. The king may be dead, the cocaine trade is not.
Since he was taken out, the industry, as it were, has splintered.
The Sinaloa cartel, one of the largest and most dangerous drug cartels in the world.
The cartel new generation is more powerful today than ever before.
They trafficked heroin, methamphetamine, cocaine, and marijuana.
There's lots of different cartels, lots of different international mafias involved. Donald Trump has now declared 8 of the largest cartels as terrorist organizations.
Today, the United States is launching enhanced counter-narcotics operations in the Western Hemisphere.
And Spanish police told us they now fear Europe may increasingly be targeted, especially if it becomes more difficult to get drugs across the American border.
So when we look at the business of cocaine around the world, it's hundreds of billions of dollars. What we're ultimately looking at are Latin American organised crime groups controlling the production and export of cocaine. And what we've seen the development of over the last 10 to 15 years is that wholesale customer base expanding. Traditionally, significant percentages of that would go up to North America, often through or directly via Mexico. We now see Europeans established in Latin America, building on the presence of Italian mafia transatlantic. We've seen British, Dutch and Albanian organised crime groups having direct access to cocaine, buying it directly from Colombians at the cheapest prices and bringing it back to Europe where the most profit can be made. When we talk about the market for cocaine in the UK, we're talking approximately £4 billion per year, 100 tonnes of cocaine that has been successfully imported into the UK for that purpose. Cocaine is an organic substance, it's a leaf, and from that leaf the coca paste is extracted, very often in the Amazon environment, because significant quantities of water are necessary to achieve that. But so are industrial chemicals and substances such as kerosene, hydrochloric acid. These substances are used to wash and convert and crystallise the cocaine into a white powder. Compressed blocks of cocaine are then converted into kilograms and dried. Those kilograms very often have a logo of their manufacturer or their trafficker embossed on them, and having been wrapped in multiple layers of rubber to protect them in transit, they're shipped internationally. That cocaine travels the Atlantic in yachts, maritime vessels, containers, aircraft, passenger couriers, in luggage, sometimes in people's bodies, swallowed in pellets. It arrives in consumer markets such as the UK, and those kilogram blocks are broken down into 1 gram units and sold for anywhere between about £40 and £80 per gram. So the Latin American production is the source. The UK is Europe's largest consumer market. The Atlantic is the barrier.
So these international cartels are now looking for different ways to get one over on the competition, and one of these new technologies they've employed is the Narco Sub. So Narco Subs are basically homemade submarines, made from fiberglass and sometimes wood as well. They're incredibly difficult for radar sensors to pick up.
The submersibles are invisible to the point that they're offloaded. And I think that's why organised crime groups are starting to favour them. Some of the submarines that we have encountered being used for cocaine trafficking are fully submersible. They wouldn't dive as deep, of course, as a typical military submarine in that respect, because their operational necessity is just to travel a journey undetected. Others are semi-submersible, which means they will be generally buoyant at surface level but have a capability of going below the surface for short periods of time.
What we know is the trafficking organizations will change their methods according to the risks and rewards that they can make. So one assumes that some other routes and some other methods have become more risky or more expensive, and they've decided that the submarine route is a more profitable way to do it and lower risk.
Typical kilo of cocaine at production is worth in the region of $3,000 US. The European market ups that to approximately 20,000 euros in continent Europe and 25,000 pounds in the UK. So the investment in constructing a submarine that's capable of doing that journey, 10 tons of converting $3,000 to 25,000 pounds, makes that a very lucrative and attractive proposition.
So these narco subs are constructed in Amazon jungle workshops.
Some of the early examples were actually submarines that had been commissioned for legitimate purposes and converted into narco trafficking. What that gives organised crime groups and cartels is an insight of what a submarine is, how it functions, and what organised crime has always done very well, unfortunately, is corrupt people with legitimate skills to utilise those skills to construct submarines capable of being submersed and travelling routes.
When it's ready, it's put into the Amazon River or another tributary in the jungle, floats down the Amazon, and it's a way out to sea.
These vessels will be introduced via non-regulated ports, so often by the shoreline, and they travel undetected throughout that journey.
So police sources believe that these subs have been coming across the Atlantic from South America to Europe for 20 years. But the first one that they actually caught or discovered was in 2019 called Che, which I managed to get a tour of courtesy of Spanish police. It was absolutely fascinating to actually go inside this thing. The smell, first of all, hit you when you first lowered yourself through the porthole of the diesel engine, and there's still soot everywhere. It was so cramped. There was a steering wheel. It was an incredibly rudimentary way of steering something across the Atlantic. A diesel engine was behind you, and then there was a huge storage space for the 3 tons of cocaine and 20,000 litres of diesel needed to fuel this thing on its journey. It felt like a floating coffin, to be honest. It felt like anyone who'd got inside that thing, it was almost a suicidal mission. Merchant shipping would have no idea this semi-submersible was just under the waves when they were passing. And if the thing malfunctioned, if the engine broke, they'd be sinking to a watery grave at the bottom of the sea.
They have not too much space, so the maximum people that they can go inside is 3, because they have the guarantee, the guy who is the sailor, and 1 mechanic, because you will find always a problem during the crossing. And the guarantee because at the end is the people in charge of the communications. So he's with a cell phone or Wi-Fi or whatever he's using to communicate with the other people, and they need to be in charge of these communications. So this person is who decide what is the rendezvous point or what is the area that they have to arrive.
So Che was loaded with 3 tons of high-quality cocaine. It was trekking across the depths of the Atlantic, thought it hadn't been detected, but in fact it was being tracked by Britain's National Crime Agency, which is our version of the FBI. They knew where the sub was, and they knew it was heading for Galicia in northern Spain.
Galicia is one of the most important areas about the smuggling and traffic, and it's very simple because of the cost.
Very rugged coast, cliffs falling straight down to the Atlantic. It's a place you sort of imagine as a smuggler's paradise. And in fact, it has a long history of that. Clans in the area have long smuggled tobacco, and then they progressed to hashish, and now they're onto cocaine, and it seems to be the place where all these South American narco subs are aiming for. So I actually went out on patrol with Spanish customs as they went up and down the coastline looking for these narco subs, and We were able to see the thermal imaging equipment on the bridge, which they can zoom up and down on and look for these subs as they come across the Atlantic. Now, it looked like a hellishly difficult business to detect any of these subs. They realised that they are under watch from this thermal imaging equipment, and some of them have even reportedly had lead covers on to stop the heat emerging so they can be detected. But the Atlantic is so cold, it's very difficult for any heat to emanate and be picked up by the sensors. On patrol with the customs officers, they told me they have Heckler and Koch machine guns on board in case things get ugly when they stop one of these smuggling vessels. The gangs involved are often the so-called Mokro Mafia or the Albanian Mafia, who are two of the most dangerous and well-armoured criminal organisations on the face of the earth. So the South American cartels, alongside the Albanian and Mokro Mafia, are a loose yet powerful criminal network that have cornered much of Europe's cocaine market.
The cocaine trade is highly lucrative, and that means that what they're smuggling is worth potentially and commonly millions of pounds or euros. So it's not unusual for the organised crime groups that are involved in cocaine trafficking at that level to also be armed at various stages of their operation. But then on top of that, you've got the ruthlessness of being involved in an organised crime group. With that ruthlessness comes violence, and with that violence comes murder. So it's not unusual for European-based organised crime groups to kidnap, to murder, to carry firearms, to threaten their workforce. The sort of weaponry that they have would be military and police-grade pistols, and up to and including semi-automatic and fully automatic weapons capable of firing hundreds or if not thousands of rounds per minute.
We recently obtained some absolutely shocking footage of narcos unloading a drugs vessel down in the south of Spain in the Huelva estuary. And one of the guys was wearing a mask, black mask, carrying what looked like a submachine gun and pacing up and down the riverbank as packages of what police believe were hashish were unloaded. Now, it was when the police released this video, they made clear and they said, this is not a movie. It was like something out of Scarface or something like that.
I'm not shocked by that video. I feel perhaps I should be, because this is criminal groups wielding high-powered weaponry and bringing volumes of drugs into Europe. But sadly, it represents what organised crime groups do to protect their assets and to protect themselves. When we now look specifically at the UK marketplace and the UK consumer, the figures that I've seen recently are that the UK consumes typically 100 tonnes of cocaine a year. That's a staggering amount. That makes us Europe's largest market. That demand has created heightened supply, in my opinion, and the UK market is now a significant magnet for drug traffickers globally because of the amount of wealth that can be generated by supplying to our demand.
While there are sort of ups and downs in terms of overall trends of drug use, the level of drug problems, particularly drug-related overdose deaths, are rising very significantly, and that we should all be worried about that.
So there's no doubt these subs are getting more and more sophisticated because the profits are simply just so immense. With the different competing mafias and cartels around the globe and the profits that are accrued from this trade, I believe the sophistication of these crafts is just simply going to get better and better.